You say the craziest thing.
Bubbling cauldron of hate.
You're the angry young
would go
Coulter.
that far. You're a name caller yourself.
Although I'm not sure sometimes.
Underneath all this alleged clothing?
I think you say it for effect.
Don't you think you get to be too mean, though?
You obviously don't believe in our system of justice.
You've grievously been unfair to some folks in here.
You, of all people, to make that charge.
A flamethrower.
That you spit hate. Sound like Rush Limbaugh and drag.
It was when I started editing the Cornell Review, my senior year of college, that I suddenly decided I wanted to be a writer, because it was really fun having liberals, getting liberals to go crazy. It's kind of addictive. It was one of these alternative conservative papers. You'd put out your Cornell reviews, and liberals would come along and stage burnings of them. They'd sweep up, it was free, of course, they'd sweep up huge stacks and throw them away. We had gotten a tip that the university trustees, this is funny that I remember this, had written a report on minority enrollment at Cornell and how to get it up. The leftist version of, well, blacks, of course, they're stupider, so we're going to have affirmative action. Just, straight out in this liberal, patronizing racism. And so we run all these quotes from it and make fun of it. Anything touching on race, there was a huge firestorm. Huge. Oh, meetings, town hall, weeping, hugging. That was when I first started getting hate mail. And, you realize very early on, you either like hate mail or you don't. And I like it.
I think liberals are a bunch of whiners. I mean, every time people won't publish...
Hey, why so preemptive?
I always thought I wanted to be a lawyer, ran in the family. And it seemed like it would be fun from watching Perry Mason. I called my parents up when I got into Chicago. I was in Washington. And I said, I got into University of Chicago, that's where I'm going. And I also said I'm going to take a year off before going. Father said to that plan, that's fine, Ann, you can take a year off before you go to law school, but I'm not paying for it. Well, Reagan was president, and all these right-wingers were in Washington. So it was a lot of fun. They were young right-wingers, and they had all worked on their student papers. The one thing Reagan did, other Republican presidents would come in, and, right-wingers would move to Washington for 3 years and then move back. Reagan brought a right-wing infrastructure to Washington, D.C., because all these young kids loved Reagan. We loved him. So they all moved to Washington. And I thought, I don't know, I'd write, I'd work for Policy Review, get a job at Heritage. It was really fun, really stupid, but really fun.
Anne never did join the wave of young conservatives who flooded into Ronald Reagan's Washington. From Cornell, she went straight to law school at the University of Michigan. After stints in the Department of Justice Honors Program and as a clerk to a federal appellate judge, she settled into life as a corporate lawyer in New York City. But when the Republicans seized control of Congress in 1994, she could no longer resist the lure of the nation's capital. Anne packed her bags, took a 60% pay cut, and joined Spence Abrams' staff at the Senate Judiciary Committee, intent on repealing the New Deal. 2 years later, she jumped ship to the rights equivalent of the ACLU, the Center for Individual Rights, which was already barraging the courts with motions to dismantle affirmative action and sexual harassment laws.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
Then, Bill Clinton didn't have sex with an intern, and Anne weighed in on the president's conduct, both when his pants were and were not unzipped, in her first book, High Crimes and Misdemeanors.
You're proud of what you did to Bill and Hill, aren't you? You impeached the guy.
Thank you. You're one of the few who will give me credit for that.
You played Monica's tape recorded conversations with Linda Tripp at your house parties.
No, that is utterly preposterous, but I love that there are so many rumors about me out there.
3 years later, she returned with an attack on the media with Slander, a volume so explosive that HarperCollins, which had commissioned it, refused to publish it. 6 months after its rejection, Crown picked up Anne's latest tome, which ignited a firestorm.
Your main thesis, Anne, is that liberals really misrepresent
conservatives and the conservative movement. Isn't that accurate?
And when every one of your arguments is characterized as an attempt to bring back slavery or resegregate lunch counters, it's a little hard to have any sort of productive debate.
Let's talk about the religious right. Actually, since I'm conducting this interview, one of the things you say is the religious right is misrepresented by the liberal media.
The religious right is presumed to be self-evidently fanatical, intolerant, as for example, the quote that has so captured the imaginations of gossip columnists, my calling you the affable Eva Braun of morning TV. They can't put everything in context, but the context of that was a speech in which you blamed the dragging death of James Byrd on the intolerance created by evangelical Christians, which is just an astonishing statement.
By the time Treason was released in the summer of 2003, Ann Coulter had become a name-brand political celebrity, the first female writer to break into those ranks since Gloria Steinem.
When I am responding to 50 years of the liberal creation of a myth, turning an honorable American, a great American patriot, Joe McCarthy, into a virtual Nazi.
I'm not going with the great American
I'm telling the truth
patriot.
about...
I'm not going with that.
Okay, that's
I'm
because
going
you
with
buy into the
a
behemoth
guy
myth.
who used his power to do some good, but a lot of bad, too.
Like what?
Well, he demonized people who didn't deserve to be demonized.
That's not true. Name one. There is not one.
I'll name one, Dalton Trumbo.
He had nothing to do with Dalton Trumbo.
Sure he did. It was a House of Un-American Activities Committee, all right? And who was overseeing that?
The reason he is known as Senator McCarthy is that he was in the Senate, not the House.
The conservative movement has found its diva.
Ann Coulter, such a familiar figure, such a strong voice.
One of the most successful right-wing pundits.
Ann has emerged as one of the nation's most prolific political writers, churning out a book every year, a syndicated news column every week, and pushing the envelope on every issue in speeches, radio interviews, and television commentary.
You referred to swarthy males.
Right.
And that upset some people. You understand that phrase, swarthy males, can be offensive to some people?
No, actually, I rather like swarthy males.
Well,
the good part of being a Democrat is that you can commit crimes, sell out your base, bomb foreigners, and rape women, and the Democratic faithful will think you're great.
John Kerry, John Edwards, and Howard Dean have emerged from the Iowa caucuses in a three-way race. When Bill Clinton heard the news, he said, you know, I remember my first Iowa three-way like it was yesterday.
The main lesson from the court's discovery of the hidden gay marriage clause is that these judges are in the wrong job. If they can find a right to gay marriage in the Massachusetts Constitution, never before detected by any human being, we need to get them looking for Osama bin Laden. These guys can find anything.
Do you like to watch two women getting it on? Or?
No, the last time I did was the Katie Couric interview with Hillary Clinton. Other than that, I have no experience with two women having sex. Are you taking a dig at Katie? I've been dying for someone to ask me this because I came up with a solution a few weeks ago. We put the Palestinian state in France.
Airports scrupulously apply the same laughably ineffective airport harassment to Susie Chapstick as to Muslim hijackers. It is preposterous to assume every passenger is a potential crazed homicidal maniac. We know who the homicidal maniacs are. They are the ones cheering and dancing right now. We should invade their countries, kill their leaders, and convert them to Christianity.
This is what the Ann Coulter doll should look like.
Oh, I know. And in fact, we brought that guy one time. I was showing them some of the various versions of the Ann Coulter doll.
Oh.
She saw the bald head
I hope
version.
I wasn't insulting the guy. I'm like,
They
you made her
no,
nose
but
too
you weren't
pointy.
doing enough of it because they're just going to keep sending. We're not going to get this doll ever done if he keeps making me look like Cruella de Vil. Yes, and see what they do on a Barbie is the hair goes in concentric circles. They haven't done that. They have, it's like bald for part of it.
But he made her mouth out here.
Yeah,
Like
the
Jack,
last
like-
one we saw, it was very weird.
Like
Big
the Joker.
mouth.
And then a really pointy nose, and then he didn't put lashes on the eyes, which made her look more masculine.
Again, you know, the Rosenbergs were not exactly what we would call model parents.
Well,
I mean, that's what really shocked Hoover, that liberals sort of shift the description of this. But the idea that Ethel was innocent, she's typing up reports, she brings David, her own brother, into it, but that's their fallback position, that she wasn't a paid Soviet agent, therefore she was innocent. And they always say that Hoover was using the mother.
whose mother? Oh, you can't talk to me right now. Oh, Ann has to be. You know, you are one of the few people who can shut Ann Coulter up.
That's what he said, I got her.
Hi there. Yeah, hi. Fine, thank you. How are you? Say, what am I talking about? That would be great, thanks. No, I love the New York Times. I'd be out of business but for the New York Times. I've heard that. Yeah, I refer to many of the journalists who interview me as the joke bomb squad. They can de-wire any joke in 30 seconds. Great, thank you very much. That was a lot of fun. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Can I talk to you while you're doing this?
Yeah, yeah.
I have to come up with some, when people ask you about your jokes, what are you supposed to say?
What?
It's one of the most common things where people read a joke to me that I think is a very funny joke. Explain that, Miss Coulter. They just read one, I'd forgotten this article I wrote. It was on Hillary's book, and they had just done a poll about what people think of the Clintons, and it was something like 53% don't want Hillary Clinton ever to run for office. 43% think she should leave the country. It was something, you know, I mean, it was a very extreme poll. And then the third, but I quote it honestly, and then the last line was, and 7% have been date raped by Bill Clinton, which I thought was a good line. They read this, now what do you mean by that? It's a joke! A lot of people thought it was funny. Well, then they quoted me saying mean things about journalists. And I didn't realize that they were being testy. I mean, it's sort of embarrassing. I don't think of TV interviews as journalists, and that's why I was clarifying to them I meant print reporters. Because you go, you have a nice lunch, you have a lovely time, you go, and then you read the paper, oh my God, it's Hitler! Aloud. A loud, friendly argument was preoccupying a table at Bella Blue on the Upper East Side over pasta and a fair amount of white wine. Unfortunately, none drunk by David Card, the author.
At least you weren't throwing up and being bulimic.
Take that out. No jokes about that.
But he shows you eating at least.
Take that out. You can never repeat the insane things people said. Did you see the Gary Condit interview where he repeats the story about his wife not having thumbs? No, it is not good policy to repeat the insane things said about you. Although she is frequently tagged as being a sex object for older men on talk radio, yeah, by liberals. Her publicists say her appearances on campus has produced the most rabid response. But let's just say, stipulating for the purposes of argument, that this was a war just for oil. We need oil. Why not go to war just for oil? What do Hollywood celebrities imagine? What do Hollywood celebrities imagine fuels their private jets? How do they think their cocaine is delivered to them?
I'm here because Ann Coulter represents sort of the demagoguery of, presenting a false picture of what's going on in the country. She tells people that, this is all about free market and freedom, when it's really about killing people in Iraq and stealing their oil and their wealth.
My fears are right here, but
there are a surprising number of vicious women on the right.
She seems like a deeply wounded woman, and I want to see her pain play out live and in person.
They don't care for people. People are numbers to them.
I just think that she's an idiot.
I don't actually follow that much politics.
I haven't read any of her books.
She looks very anorexic to me. I mean, I don't know if she's a restrictor and denies herself that food, and therefore she acts out of that, denial by, becoming an attack dog. And she is a rabid attack dog.
This is Mein Kampf. This is Mein Kampf. It is by Adolf Hitler. And I feel that her policies are just so closely linked to Hitler's that I will see if she will sign this book tonight.
The New York Times' Thomas Friedman, in a commonplace formulation, sniffs that racial profiling isn't civilized, and he blames 20 years of attacks on American interests by Muslim extremists on, I quote, religious fundamentalists of any stripe. I don't know, the Amish have been rather quiet recently. My logic is this. In 20 years of relentless attacks on American airlines by Muslim extremists, in every one of the attacks, one or more Muslim extremists was involved. This ought to help airlines and law enforcement engage in more accurate risk assessment. On September 11th, 2001, 3,000 Americans were slaughtered in a terrorist attack on our own soil. In October 2000, our warship, the USS Cole, was attacked by Muslim extremists. In 1998, our embassies in Kenya and Tanzania were attacked by Muslim extremists. In 1996, a U.S. Air Force housing complex in Saudi Arabia was attacked by Muslim extremists. In 1995, 5 Americans were killed in a car bomb set by Muslim extremists. In 1993, of course, the World Trade Center was bombed by Muslim extremists. In 1988, a passenger jet, Pan Am Flight 103, was bombed by Muslim extremists. In 1986, a West Berlin discotheque frequented by U.S. servicemen was bombed by Muslim extremists. In 1985, an Italian cruise ship, the Achille Lauro, was seized. An 69-year-old American shot and thrown overboard by Muslim extremists. In 1983, the U.S. Marine barracks in Beirut was blown up by Muslim extremists. In 1982, the U.S. Embassy in Beirut was blown up by Muslim extremists. And starting it all in 1979, the U.S. Embassy in Tehran was seized and Americans held hostage for 444 days by Muslim extremists. Meanwhile, 100% of the terrorist attacks on U.S. airlines for 20 years have been committed by Muslims. When there is a 100% chance, it ceases to be a profile. It's called a description of the suspect. You're really developing your analytical skills here at Johns Hopkins. Very impressive. Wow. At Harvard, they had questions.
My question is, in a democracy, in a two-party democracy such as the United States, do you believe that it's healthy for democracy for one side or the other to be portrayed or demonized as traitors?
David Duke dissents from the equal rights that our nation enshrines. That doesn't make him a hero. Because you dissent from your country's war aims is not necessarily unpatriotic, but it sure isn't necessarily patriotic either.
We've all seen the picture of Donald Rumsfeld shaking hands with Saddam Hussein. We funded Saddam Hussein both in the late 60s and in the 80s. We trained bin Laden, we trained the Mujahideen.
So what's your point?
Shouldn't the people who were behind that training that spawned these terrorists, shouldn't they be charged?
So consequently, because alliances switch, an ally can never become an enemy. So we don't attack anyone. I mean, then you're excluding also Osama bin Laden. So the logic of your position is, in response to the most devastating attack on American soil ever, what America needs to do is nothing.
You didn't answer the question. Well, she's not answering my question.
Yes, I did.
Is it okay that human life, the value of human life, be superseded by that of oil, in your view?
No, of course not.
Okay. Thank you.
A woman just died recently. She was 101 years old, and her name was Rennie. I can't pronounce the last name.
Riefenstahl.
Riefenstahl, thank you.
Right, celebrated by
and she had a
Hollywood.
shocking resemblance to you, and do you realize that she did more to promote hatred? Filmmaker.
That's a very good argument.
Okay.
I'm much like a Nazi.
So, my point is...
Liberals are just getting smarter and smarter. That's it. You found the flaw in my speech. You found the flaw. I take it all back. I take back my books. You're right. I have resemblance to a Nazi. You know, if you sign people's books, but there are all these liberals here with that aren't my book. I'm not going to sign people's books here because you're blocking their way. You're a very rude person.
I think you're an asshole.
I should have thought of that.
Yes, write a rant, please. Thank you. Well, I had actually read Al Franken's book, Lies and the Lying Liars Who Tell Them, and I got a little bit of what Ann Coulter was like, but I don't think that really prepared me for what she said about me, my friends. I mean, I guess I'm an America-hating liberal, like 75% of the people who attended this lecture. but here's one cool thing. I came here with a shirt that says "Traitor" here, and she actually signed it up there, and she says,
What did she?
"Have fun in Guantanamo."
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, I know.
So naturally, some illegal aliens were held for months after 9/11. Some were held so long they had to drop out of flight school altogether.
Thank you. What I love about you is that you're beautiful and smart. No, and you're a woman.
Thank you.
And we need women like you. I love it.
I note that the characterization of France and Germany as allies is relatively recent. I guess you could call them allies, but it's a theory that's never really been tested. Liberals longed for kind words from France because they knew France was opposed to liberating Iraq. Of course, liberating Nazi concentration camps wasn't high on their priority list either. I'm not sure why we needed the moral authority of Germany before taking out a dictator who gasses his own people. But I'll say this for the Germans, they sure can fight. Which raises the question, what theoretically would France have been contributing to the war effort?
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
I'm so sorry that they were so rude to you. Like, seriously, my idol, though.
God
Seriously.
bless you. You see, all the pretty girls are on my side.
Teddy Kennedy recently said that the war to liberate Iraq was a fraud, which was a pretty serious charge coming from someone as widely respected as Teddy Kennedy. He said that the administration's current policy in Iraq was adrift, kind of like a car that's just been driven off the road.
Mira, M-I-R-A? M-E-E-R-A. That's a pretty name.
It's Indian.
Oh, you're an Indian?
Yeah.
Are you a Sikh?
No, I'm Hindu.
I have a lot of Sikh friends for some reason.
Really?
I think you're my first Hindu.
Good. I feel honored.
It's nice that you're doing a good job for the Hindus.
The quislings and cowards of the Democratic Party have exposed themselves as the Neville Chamberlains of their day. Apparently, they think that's worth a warm handshake from Susan Sarandon.
Anne, who's with each of her 3 books, has changed the political discourse, has opened up a debate that stretches for long periods of time and covers many of the things that she's raised that other people weren't debating and discussing until she did raise them.
Liberals call, or Democrats call, Republicans every name in the book. Racist, sexist, homophobes, anti-Semites, going to turn back the clock on civil rights. The one thing you can't say about someone is that he's unpatriotic, as long as, if it's a Democrat. Oh, okay. You can say it's not true, or the sign of true patriotism, rather. True patriotism is supporting the public schools. True patriotism is opposing the Patriot Act. But you can't say true patriotism is supporting your country. Once you isolate the animosity of a lot of liberals toward, for example, war in Iraq, it's really hard to come to a conclusion that this is being done for any reason other than rooting against America. Because as you say, I mean, purely on a human rights template, this is a guy we should have been taking out. Before 9/11, I would have said, sorry, there are a lot of bad people in the world. I wish other countries of the world luck, but we're not going to go around and have Americans die to create Ohio and the rest of the world. But after 9/11, this is an area of the world we need to clean up. But the worst case scenario is we're taking out a monster who gassed his own people. I mean, liberals were, as I describe in my book, enthusiastic about war in the Balkans on the basis of some pretty, phony, drummed-up numbers about the human rights abuses. Compared to Milosevic, Saddam is a monster. We can argue about when it is and isn't in America's self-interest. What's happened is liberals have turned it into a bad reason to go to war because we have a self-interest in it. I mean, you see the same thing with their denunciations of Israel, which is, Israel shouldn't be acting here because it's in Israel's self-interest. Actual Israelis are being killed. And which is why I make the point that during World War II, Republicans were slow to respond to the threat of Hitler. That is indisputable. FDR was magnificent in fighting World War II. But once we were hit at Pearl Harbor, the Republican Party did not spend World War II taunting FDR about Hitler didn't hit us at Pearl Harbor. Why are we going after Hitler? Where's Hitler? I mean, you can't even imagine that. But we've become so accustomed to the Democratic Party opposing the reasonable national defense objectives of the country that people don't even notice it. I think I could win a case in court that people who think we should not go to war because France doesn't approve are not patriotic. I mean, it's one thing to say, which is why Buchanan is actually a beautiful illustration of my point. Buchanan and Bob Novak opposed the war in Iraq. But okay, they didn't oppose it because the UN didn't approve.
Some of the stuff I just think is just off the, over the wall. And I tell her that. And other times she has great insights. But she also has moments that's just hysterical, like when she said, she's being interviewed, are you a neocon? And she said, no, I'm a WASP.
I am a Connecticut WASP, so like Howard Dean, I'm uncomfortable talking about religion. Unlike Howard Dean, I believe in God. Well, I don't know how much time I'll have to spend with you. They're filming a documentary. Yays. Uh-huh. About me. That's why we're going to New Canaan. Okay, I love you. Bye-bye. My father was a lawyer. He's retired now, but my parents still live there, and my mother was a homemaker. 2 older brothers, so 5 in all conservatives. I mean, I'm sure we have disagreements about things. We considered Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner an utter failure if we didn't argue about both religion and politics. No, Mother still sends us Easter baskets.
Mother still sends you Easter baskets? She mails it to you?
Isn't that cute? My parents would travel a lot. They leave the country a lot. And when I was in high school, even starting around junior high school, my oldest brother, because he's a lot older than I am, was already in law school in New York. Or maybe even out of law school. And so I'd come in and live with him in New York and commute back to New Canaan High School. We referred to it as the Dirty Air Program. Bringing kids from the boring, stultifying suburbs into exciting New York City. And so I'd live with him on the Upper East Side and go out with him and then commute back to New Canaan to go to junior high school and high school. Oh, it was unbelievably great.
Did you beg your parents to travel more?
Yes. I had just broken up with my first boyfriend. I was 14 years old and I was moping around the house. And my brother was in law school then. And I was moping around all weekend. He had come out to visit, and he wanted to bring me back into a law school party. And my parents agreed, I think because I was mopey. So we pulled halfway out of the driveway, and John said, hang on a second, the car was still running. He went running in, came running back out again, and he said, I just went in to tell Mom and Dad they never would have let me do this at age 14. I went to a Ramones concert with a high school boyfriend at age 16 down, where was it? It was at a place that is not for concerts now. I can't remember the name of the place where we saw them, but one of these downtown places where the Ramones are playing. And I was wearing, you know, wide wale, lime green corduroys at a Ramones concert. But, you know, I didn't really notice. Thought, well, I guess I need long hair and ripped t-shirt and earrings through my nose to really fit in this crowd. But it just, I like the Ramones.
There's a little factoid I found interesting about Anne, that she went to 67 Grateful Dead concerts.
I actually did like the music, which is why people always say, how could you have followed Dead without taking drugs? No, I actually liked the music. We'd have drinks when we were there, and I'm not a teetotaler. But oddly, I know a lot of Deadheads who don't take drugs. They're all right-wingers.
But I don't know why you're so vitriolic in your writing. And let me give the folks an example if they haven't.
Certainly Anne is sharp, often biting, but when you strip away the rhetoric, are her arguments really all that radical? Bill Clinton is a liar.
My two best friends from the High Crimes and Misdemeanors book tour are Bill Maher and Geraldo Rivera, Clinton's two biggest defenders. And I think the reason for that is never did either of them say, I believe the president. Right? From the beginning, they said, of course he did it. He's a horn dog, and we think that's great. And I can deal with people I disagree with. I can't deal with a liar.
The media establishment is a wholly owned subsidiary of liberal America.
Look, the press bias is very real. I've talked about it. I've done a lot. I mean, I'm really, I'm intense about it.
Did they vote for Democrats in the election? Yeah, they do. And in their heart of hearts, do they want Kerry to win over Bush? Absolutely.
Senator Joseph McCarthy was correct. There were paid communists working for the federal government.
Well, there were.
Right.
I don't think there were as many as Joseph McCarthy said there were, but you know, when it comes to communism, that's another area where she and I are a lot more in sync than people would think.
I think Anne is a legitimate, true believer. I think she's a conservative in her heart. And she really believes this stuff. And she's really smart and clever and committed.
She works hard. She writes her own books and researches her own books, as opposed to Al Franken, who it seems as if, you know, one day he decides that he'd like to be a radio personality. So, like a belated bar mitzvah gift, somebody gives him a radio network.
She is radical, yes, in the true meaning of the word. I mean, to say that, you know, we should invade Muslim countries and kill them and convert them to Christianity, that's radical. Come on.
I mean, people have this instantaneous reaction. And for most people in my circles, it's instantaneously negative. I mean, they think she's a beast. And they think she's a beast not because they've ever talked to her in person, but because she seems to stand for everything they disagree with, and to do so with such zeal.
And I think the thing that really drives them nuts is two things. One is that she's tough, and she stays in the arena, and they can't shake her. They can't, if you want, they can't get her to cry. And the other thing is because she's funny.
I actually am a real liberal and a real Democrat, and I actually believe in things. And as I like to say, I don't check my voter registration card to figure out what my convictions are. I've said that on the air. Ann's one of those people that does it. You want to know who I want to be on? I want to be on somebody who doesn't do that.
And what I love about her is that she's so unafraid to stick by her guns. She doesn't care about the booze. I love that. That's where we are so simpatico.
They were having the convention, the Democratic Convention in Florida, and they had, and I was watching on CNN because the candidates were speaking this last fall, in the fall, and they had a booth where you could go in and vote for who you hated the most, and she was winning. It was like her, Ashcroft, I don't remember who else it was, like Rush Limbaugh, whatever. And at the midway during the day, she was winning. So I called her up, and I told her she was so happy. She was just going. It made her weak. I mean, she was so excited she didn't know what to do.
My hobby has become my life. I have the greatest life imaginable. I think I have a greater life than anyone in the universe. In fact, I sleep till noon. I work in my underwear. I'm my own boss. No one can fire me. The only people who could ever fire me are the American people if they don't want to hear me anymore, if they don't buy my books, if they don't read my columns. And you know what? You've gotten your full hour out of me. Thank you. Do you need anything else?
Why are you friends with Ann Coulter? They always ask me that, which just amazes me, because why can't you be friends with someone you don't agree with? And especially when that question comes from liberals, who are supposed to be the ones who are for tolerance. Tolerance can't pause at where we just don't agree with someone, can it?
John, I think you're going to have to say goodbye to Patrick for me.
Okay, I will.
We'll see him next week at UNC.
Ms. Coulter, you were a breath of fresh air here.
Thank you. Thank you. You see, I always got the good people on my side, the pretty girls and the cops.
In the military.
And the military. One of my friends just flew back from Iraq. He flew a flying serviceman back. And he oh, this one? He said 3 of the 11 guys on the plane flying back from Iraq, leaving Iraq, 3 of them were reading Treason. That's the greatest. Thank you. Thanks.
Where's the other lady?
Getting to the side?
What do I see with it? All right. Okay.